I think everybody has this though, right? They all have a weakness that they think is a weakness, but if channeled properly can become an incredible strength. And that's what I've gotten good at over the years is looking for the situations I could put that in place.
Welcome to the From Within podcast with Ben Osterveld. Dan, I'm so pumped to have you on the show. It's cool because I don't really know you. It's the first time we've talked. A lot of times there's some background. We literally have a couple people we know, but the people that I know say really nice things about you, Dan. So
I just paid them. I paid them a lot of money, and that's the way it's faster and easier.
Yeah, I don't know if the network's any good, but they like you. So, but here's
I paid them, so they have to like me.
Really? Hey, what's it cost? Like, I haven't even tried
Not a
this
lot.
strategy.
You'd be surprised how little it costs for people.
You're using influencer marketing, right? You're just for friends. That's good. Good. You're depressed every night, but whatever.
Vernon's the cheapest. How about that? He's the cheapest.
Yeah, no, he doesn't know how to price himself. That's why. So anyways, no, how does he get on my show every time? That's the only issue. He always kind of jumps on my show. We always talk about him. So no, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. He's one of a kind. I think there's no one like that guy. So, hey, here's the first thing, Dan. What I want to do is the reason why I got you on the show, to be honest, is like there's a lot of people that have done a lot of cool stuff, okay? And we like to grade each other on our accomplishments, which I respect massively. Like your list of what you've done is just huge respect. But that wasn't why I'm like, that's the guy on my show. I saw you giving back to teens. I saw your backstory. And on From Within this podcast, it's really about connecting the dots between the human behavior and the business success. And I think a lot of people get successful, but they're depressed, unhappy, and divorced. Like I've gone through that myself. And it's like, I'm working with people all the time as well, but I'm working on the human behavior style. And what happens is they pop in business. And I'm starting to see this pattern over and over again. And that's why the podcast is alive today. And so I want you to, first of all, I want you to give me the brag, Dan. There's a lot of people, logical people. They don't know who you are. In my world, they don't know, but let's give them a brag. Tell me, Dan, what you've done in this world. You're probably a humble guy, but it's time to brag. So,
I'm a Canadian humble dude, but I can brag
Let's hear it.
If you're asking. So about me, I've built several 8-figure plus software companies. I raised venture capital for the last 2, so Flowtown and Clarity. Exited the last 3 companies. Became a millionaire when I was 27. Have invested in it's a lot more than 40. I say 40, but I'm also a limited partner in a ton of funds. So they've invested in a ton of companies, but 4 of those are billion-dollar companies. So Hootsuite, Intercom, Get Around, and Udemy are some of the most notable ones. I got to spend a week with Richard Branson at his home in Switzerland. Mark Cuban was one of my investors in my previous companies. Travis Kalanick from Uber was an investor in my previous company. I've co-invested in pretty much you name the person from Zuckerberg to Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook, to Marissa Mayer. I've co-invested with those people in companies. And the thing I'm most proud of though is pretty much for 20 years plus now, I've mentored and coached at-risk youth. So I actually spend a lot of time at this rehab center that saved my life. And through that work, created a program called Creators that works with at-risk youth to help them build their confidence through building businesses.
Love it.
And that's kind of why I do all the financial stuff, is the more I make, the more I give. And it's part of my business models. It's always been the way I've done it. Before it was a thing called a B Corp. And I just love entrepreneurship. I think it's the ultimate personal development program. And it's why I get on calls like this to share what I've learned about how I've done those things.
You know what? Do you know what I like? I love your about page. Love it. Like it is so easy, so simple. I love it. Everyone should jump on Dan Martell. What's your website real quick?
Dan Martell, 2Ls, Martell.com.
And check out the about page. It's got so much life and vibrance. It's got the brag, but it really, really is cool how you set that up. I love it. And I think it's worth a look how you describe the backstory. You're sitting there in the jail. Like it's amazing. So tell me about this then. So you've got a lot of accolades, you got a lot of success. Where to begin? Give me the origin of Dan. Like what's the story here? I know that you've been to jail a couple times. You're into the drugs and stuff. I relate to that. And that's where I want to start today, if that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, so I grew up in a challenging environment. My mom's an alcoholic, and my dad was kind of always on the road. And I'm the second oldest of 4 kids, and just had a lot of energy, And when I was 11, I got diagnosed with ADHD and put on Ritalin. And for a large part of my youth, I thought I was broken. Yeah. And just really struggled with depression and self-worth, and ended up discovering drugs when I was 13, and pretty much my life spiraled out of control, spending time with guys twice my age, to the point where, at 16, I ended up in a high-speed chase, drunk and high, and smashed into a house. And when I crashed, I had a handgun sitting next to me, and I decided I was going to, point the gun at the police and let them do their jobs. And it, fortunately for me, it got stuck. Wow. And the cops grabbed me and threw me in the back of the cop car. And I woke up sober the next day in a jail cell, wondering what my life was going to look like. Obviously the severity of my crimes were pretty intense, and I ended up doing 6 months in an adult jail. And then eventually earned my way into a rehab center called Portage. And I did 11 months in therapy, working on my feelings and my anger issues and my self-worth, and rebuilding the trust with my family. And it was at the end of that program where I was helping Rick, one of the maintenance guys, clean out this cabin, because it was an old church camp. And in one of the rooms was an old 486 computer and a yellow book on Java programming sitting next to it. And up to that point, I never touched computers.
Wow.
And
cool
I just opened the book up and followed chapter 1 and started the computer. And I got the computer to say, "Hello world." And I literally thought it was like a computer genius. I was like, oh my God, this is why I'm such a friggin' devil's child, is because I've got this skill for computer programming. Unfortunately, that is not what happened. It became my passion because I believe that. I am actually not that great a developer. I hire some incredible 10X programmers. That's not me. But it became my new passion, and building software products and eventually software companies is how I kind of got through it. So I always say that programming became my new addiction, but entrepreneurship was really the ultimate personal development program that allowed me to focus on betterment. And look, I went to rehab, and the percentage of people that actually stay clean is very small. And the percentage of people that stay clean that actually go on to become multimillionaires is very rare. I get that. And I'm just saying, from my experience, those are the things that allowed me to get on that path that I think is not present for a lot of just people in general. And it was the foundation. So having gone through so much as a kid, as an entrepreneur, it allowed me to deal with a lot of uncertainty that turns out to be an incredible skill as a business builder, because there is no certainty. And it's pretty much why I've been drawn to just creating value in the world. And it's why I give back so much, because, somebody showed up in my life when I was a teenager and shared their belief in me in a time when I didn't have any self-worth, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that person.
So tell me this, you're already segueing into kind of what I'm thinking about is what's the, you've had a lot of success. You just already said your resilience is what I hear, because I understand that feeling as well. I spent 365 days in rehab, and when life is really hard for a long time, I think that does give you an advantage in business if you can overcome that, right? I think a lot of people get taken out by that. But if you can overcome that, I think that's a massive advantage. And I have also just realized this in the last few years. It's wow, some people are freaking out. I'm like, why are you freaking out? I'm like, you get to eat, and you get at the end of the day, the basics of life is you've won. And it's the resilience, like you said, the strength to kind of push through. You analyze risk differently, right? Do you see any ties? What are any other ties that you have from what you've overcome personally? Okay, that has made you very successful today?
I mean, there's so much. So what's funny is, I did a video on my YouTube channel around ADHD. I have 2 now because the first one did so well. I consider that an incredible strength, right? But it's it can also be a detriment to a lot of people if they don't know how to manage it. And I've just spent the time and energy to study it, to figure out how do I structure my day and my energy to get the most out of it and mitigate the downside and the impact of that. So there's that part of it. Growing up, essentially selling selling drugs and learning things at, 12, 13, 14 years old, I probably should never learn, allowed me to build that entrepreneurial muscle, right? I always joke when I go talk to these people in rehab, like, you guys are world-class negotiators. You guys are world-class risk takers. You're like all these things, which cues you up to be an incredible entrepreneur if you can just figure that out and stay off of this other stuff, right? Creativity is a big thing. Drive. And then what's a big one that people don't realize is just having no expectations of you. So like what I mean by that is so cool. As long as Di didn't end up back in jail, in my family's perspective, which, in the early days, people put that as like their test of like, are you proud of me? I was rocking, like literally, as long as I didn't get arrested, anything I did was incredible. So that means that even if I started a business and failed, it was still better than what I was doing before. My dad used to say when I was growing up, he's like, if you could just figure out something you're passionate about that isn't illegal, I think you'd do well. And when he saw me get into the computers, I give my dad a ton of credit. He's like, because game over. He literally said, any book you want to buy that you consume, I will buy. So like he spent $3,000 over a 2-3 year period on, like, I would go to the local bookstore, the Indigo chapters, whatever you guys call it, Borders. And I would just spend time in the computer section and read books on database programming and database design and architecture and HTML and JavaScript and Perl and like you name the technology. And he paid for it because he just saw how much I would devour it. So like even that intensity, again, is that's
ADHD stuff, right? Like I relate to that too. Like you get into some kind of insanity focus. Like that's the other side of ADHD, right? You go into insanity focus. Like I didn't realize that for years. I'm like, I just go into like, why wouldn't you just get it done? Like I look at people, why don't you just get it done? Like,
it's like an outfit.
Just go put 14 hours straight in and it's over. Yeah, 15, 16 hours straight. What's the big deal? Just bang it out. Like, why are you, no, fast, you can get this done 24 hours straight. That's easy. 60 hours, that's all it's going to take. Crush it. Like, I think that's tied to that strength of the ADHD, right?
Yep. So it's like, I think everybody has this though, right? They all have a weakness that they think is a weakness, but if channeled properly can become an incredible strength. And that's what I've gotten good at over the years is looking for the situations I could put that in place. Right. And use it to my advantage.
I think half of that is framing it, the understanding that the dialogue in your head, so you're not a failure, you're not broken, you're actually at an advantage. If we can somehow frame that, change it, everything changes. You know what I mean? As soon as you realize, holy shit, I'm different. Yeah. Everyone rejects me. Yeah. But guess what? I'm a fucking superhero. I didn't realize that I've got something that other people don't understand. And we always try to fit in. I think that's the biggest mistake we make. Right.
And I think for me, that has to come from other people saying it to me. It was never easy for me to self-realize it. That's why I've always had mentors in my life. Is I need somebody else to go, hey, Dan, I hear what you're saying, but you've never looked at it this way. So to me, it's that belief and perspective shift. I work best when somebody else can kind of argue for it in my favor versus it coming from within. It's just never been something I discovered through reading a book.
So when someone, tell me, can you tell me a situation where you've actually gone through that with one of your mentors? And they just you got to realize what's in there, and they can point us. They actually say, hey, look, take a look, good and bad. They call you out, right? What?
100%.
Give me an example where that you've had some kind of breakthrough through having that mentor point something out to you.
Literally the one I guess the most impactful, most recent was a friend of mine, Alex, Icon. I mean, there's a series of people. There's Martin Lett, Alex Icon, Todd Herman, all of them pretty much said like, Dan, you are an incredible like communicator, talker. You need to do video. Like they're like, there's a ton of people doing video. I don't want to hear from anybody, but I would listen to you all day. Like, I just like the way you explain things. I like your energy. I like your storytelling. And I ignored it forever. Like they kept saying it and I ignored it. And then 4 years ago, I kept hearing it, and I unfortunately had a friend of mine find out that he had an accident. He hit his head, and the doctors gave him 3 years to live. There was like a chemical. Is crazy because he had two girls that were the exact same age as my two boys.
It's heavy, man.
And,
heavy.
Yeah. And I remember asking him, well, how do you deal with that? Like I almost would want it's done kind of event versus a 3-year knowing it's going to happen. And he just said, I've already shot the videos. And that just crushed me. Right? It's like, I couldn't even imagine having to sit down and shoot the video of my, my kid's graduation or his marriage or whatever it is. Like, that's just crazy. But that was enough's enough. I'm going to start shooting videos, and that, just got on camera. I literally just hit record in iPhoto or whatever they call it now, photo booth, and started my first video. And it was it started by me wanting to share what I thought my kids would want to learn from me. Like, what are my values? What are my beliefs? What are the life lessons? How do you discover your passion? So like in the early days of my YouTube show, it was all about just life. And then it became about business, and then it became about software. So it's kind of like now it's all about software all day long, but it's definitely gone through this journey. And I posted every Monday for 4 years, 300 plus videos, haven't missed a Monday. And I'm dedicated to do it for at least a decade.
Amazing. I love your heart, man. Love your heart. I give up a lot to maintain a healthy family. And I think that's probably something you relate to as well. Because at the end of the day, what's the point, right? What's the point if you don't have those relationships in order with your daughters? And you got 2 daughters, right?
Two boys.
Right? Two boys. Sorry, 2 boys. 50-50 chance. But it was 2 kids and wife. And so how important is your family life?
I mean, to me,
it's kind of a stupid question. What are you going to say?
It's not a stupid question, because I literally coach some of the smartest entrepreneurs in the world, like, founders of ClickFunnels and Carrot.com, like the best bootstrap SaaS founders in the world. And they're awesome. But I do work with some clients where they're dealing with so much chaos at home that they're brilliant operational people, entrepreneurs. And I'm just like, do you realize how much, because sometimes they need to hear it this way, the impact to their business because of that family stuff.
Love it.
And I go, at the end of the day, we do this exercise and we get together of like saying, if you only had 7 days to live, what would you want to do with those 7 days? Right. And nobody's saying I want to work.
Nobody.
They're all saying, most of it is some variation of I want to get a big house in a cool location, invite my whole family together and just spend time with them. Okay. Well, if that's true, then why wouldn't you index so that the business supports the family? So I call it the integrated life, right? So every year, my wife and I, we're lucky. We're both entrepreneurs. She's incredibly driven. She's just awesome. Honestly, I'm the luckiest dude in the world. And we just always just look at our year and look at what we want to do and just kind of optimize it, improve it, right? So like, what vacations do we want to do together? What do we want to do with our families? What do we want to do with our kids? Solo with our kids. And those are the big rocks that go into our schedule. And we also just like invest in it, Ben. Like, I think people spend more time figuring out what car they're going to buy next than where their kids should go to school or how they want their lives to look. And I just find that's ridiculous. Isn't that funny? They literally spend hundreds of hours researching next car and the versus this and watching the Top Gear episodes, but they don't spend a fraction of that amount of time on how do I make my relationship more epic? How do I be a better father?
Which is literally a Nitro energy booster. Like if you wake up in the morning and you're at 60% because your wife and you have a shitty relationship, how the hell are you going to dominate? You won't win. You won't have the strength to finish the day. You can get in a fight with your, like Ben, you could literally get in a fight with your wife or your kids or whatever, and it'll ruin your headspace and you'll have 100%. An important meeting, right? 100%. You got to get on stage. You got to talk to a potential hire. You're talking to investors. Yeah. And that to me is just like, it just doesn't make sense. So it's the right thing to do, but it just happens to be the most, we don't value then you slam the coffee. You do all these stimulants, you get a Red Bull because your internal energy's got a leak. It's something I've been thinking about a lot of. It's called energy leak. Where is your energy leak in your life right now? I'm spending a lot of time because I'm working with people. I'm like, there's an energy leak. There's an energy leak. I can't finish this or whatever. I'm like, you're leaking energy. Where are you leaking it? It's kind of this new concept that I'm thinking about. And it's like, how do we win? We're going to be full. We got to fill up our gas. We got to tune the engine. Now let's go play. It's like going to run a race with a bad back. It doesn't make sense. So fix your back. Let the guys go ahead of you who have bad backs. You're going to feel like you're losing, but then you're going to dominate at the end. Like you get me on a topic here, Dan.
Well, it's an important one, especially I just feel like people use their families as excuses for doing things that their families never asked them to do.
That's deep, man. That's deep.
That's the truth. You want to hear like, oh, I'm working 100 hours a week for my family. Show me where your wife or your kids ask you to do that. That's bullshit. You want that.
Dan,
That's selfish.
you're describing my life a few years back. I remember coming home one day and my wife sat me down and goes, I'm leaving you. I'm like, what the hell? I started crying and I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, I'm doing everything for you. Everything I do is for my kids. She goes, I've been following you around for years. You just run around doing all this stuff. And she didn't want none of it. It was totally me. And it was like, when you get slapped in the face like that, and you absolutely wake up or you crash and you ignore it. But that's your choice. I wanted a wife. I wanted kids. So I relate to that big time. I was that guy chasing. Like I'll be happy when I'm independently wealthy. It's just like the most effed up thinking now that I look at it. And I realized I was happy already. The very thing I wanted, I had. And that's this weird. So it was internal that I wasn't happy. And I was trying to solve something external with this whatever I was doing. Maybe it was accolades or whatever it was. And I would wrap it around family. So I want to say I love your point.
Well, you know what it is. If you want to go deeper, Ben, check this one out. Most men, specifically men, run to their work when things aren't going good at home because it's where they can get the most significance.
Love it.
Right.
Of course.
So most people don't realize the reason they're working is not for the accolade, or it's not for the financial upside. It's the significance that they feel, or even the control that they have in that day, in that work. So that's why, like, it's when things are going good at home, it's easier for them to work 100 hours a week because at least in that environment, they can feel that. So there's a lot to unpack there, but that's just like, I just don't believe success. And we all say it and you hear it all the time. Like I know guys with private jets that are billionaires that are on the brinks of suicide. I mean, literally they're just depressed.
Do you know how depressing would be to be at the Billionaire and you still feel unhappy and it didn't work?
Have you ever, there's this great story. Tony Robbins teaches, you can search Russian billionaire suicide train track. You guys Google it.
Okay.
The guy was worth 50 billion or something like that. And he had a series of issues in his business and he went from 50 to 30. So he went from like the wealthiest person to like number 7 in Russia. And because of that, he laid down on a railroad track and took his life. I mean, come on. Crazy. Like but the fun part for me, and I may do this because I keep talking about it. I want to put $1 million in people's bank accounts. I just literally want to be like, send me your wire info and just send it. Yeah. They'll have to give it back at some point. But the whole idea is now you're a millionaire.
Now what?
How do you feel tomorrow? Guess what? Nothing's changed. You are still anxious, depressed, frustrated, etc. And you thought it was about the money.
If not,
but it's
more.
hard because you can't feel that. And like you say to people all the time, it's like, you know, when you get there, you'll realize it, but it's hard to know before.
Yeah, you don't know. It's hard to know. Like you just don't, like your brain works where it gives you everything about your life as historical data. And then it tries to predict your future with using other historical data. And that's why you have to understand how our brain works. Because it's like, what's it going to feel like to have $1 million in your bank? I don't know. Like some people be like, I don't know. Like, what does that even mean? So that's this there's no reference point, but you giving $1 million, putting in the bank, letting them sit with it for a bit, then it would have.
And go, look, you're no different. You thought this, Matt. I remember I interviewed Toby from Shopify. First question, video start, said, Toby, because I've known him for a decade. I said, how did it feel the day you became a billionaire? Okay.
Crazy.
And his answer is, you know, people talk about the skies parting and the trumpets, and he goes, nothing changed, literally nothing. You know,
that's
and
why
I was like,
it's a good message. It's good we talk about this because they got to at least have that wonder. Am I on this path for the right reason? I think, what if we're, like you said, 7 days to live? Wonderful exercise where like you may have won already. Like this is the insanity. Like I had already won. I had a wife that was into me. My kids were into me and I was busy doing all this stuff for my kids. It was just a lie. And like where in your life have you already won? Like, what about that thought? Where have you won? It's game over. You've already won. Like where we don't nurture this contentment too much. You know what I mean? And I have had that pain. So I understand how important it is to have that nurturing. But Philip McKernan has an awesome quote. He goes, when the pain is enough, you change. And I don't like it too much in some level, but it's just so freaking true. You try your best to be proactive and make your shifts yourself. But the thing is, sometimes it takes a little bit of pain. You're like, okay, it's time, you know?
But Ben, on the flip side, I do think people use that as an excuse not to create value in the world when they know they have more, right?
And
so
what
that's
do you mean?
the other,
Context.
that's it.
What do you mean?
Oh, I was running with the guy the other day. Cool dude who wants to run 101 people like in a year. Like, and I was like number 70.
Okay.
And successful financially in, you know, the small town we live in, right? In his, amongst his peer group.
Yeah.
Yeah, relative. And I'm like, dude, you know you have more to give because you're telling me that you don't feel fulfilled and you don't feel like you're given enough and there's more to create and all that stuff. So there's a balance between
yin and yang for everything.
Yes,
everything.
It's like
it's fully attached and unattached. It's the whole thing.
To me, it's I use a 5-year window because I feel like it's not 7 days, right? 7 days, yes, I'm getting a house, all my loved ones, we're done.
Yeah.
But 5 years is enough to do something meaningful and not to lack perspective. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Go ahead, sorry.
And I just feel like everybody should be rich. Everybody should be financially wealthy. Everybody should everybody has the skill. It's in you to create. Okay. We live in this, if you live in a capitalist society and like you have all in your, like never, ever, ever have you had more access to information, the infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But you know, some people use like, oh, it's not about the money. Here's what I say to those people. They haven't given enough. When you say it's not about the money, that means you don't give enough. Because if you gave enough, you would definitely make it about the money. Because like to me, that's the coolest part is the more you have, you're a good person, the more you can give. And we just happen to live in a world where value exchanges dollars. And if somebody's sick and they need a special operation, I like to know that I can pay for that operation and I don't have to suffer. My family doesn't have to suffer. And I think that there is that aspect of it too, which is the flip side of,
flip side,
competing against yourself, creating value in the world, living up to the potential of who you're supposed to be and why you're on this earth, but not using that as an excuse to totally alienate your family.
Yeah, it's totally a different perspective. Like it's completely looking at it from two angles. Every single thing we do can do that 100%. Like either if money doesn't mean anything, can be healthy. Money that doesn't mean anything could be completely hiding behind your own stuff. You're not stepping up. And that's why personal is so good. That's why coaching's weird. Like so a lot of coaches try to repeat themselves. It's a big mistake, right? Every human being's different. You got to pull the best out of people. So I got a question for you. I think you've probably had a pretty crazy past too. And I think we develop chips on our shoulders. Okay. I want to know how important to you is the chip on your shoulder in business. And do you have a chip anywhere?
Yeah.
Where's your chip?
I had it when I started. So here's what I've discovered personally. And it's really the difference, about being fulfilled, because I don't like the word happy. I think happy is a stupid word. Like I don't wake up and go, I wish I'm happy. I want to feel useful. Like I'm not happy about going to the gym, but I feel some good afterwards. Right. Yeah. That concept. So fulfillment to me is a better word. And I think in the early days, I used the chip, right? Proving my dad wrong as the motivation, right? I went to the extreme where I refused to ask him for help. And then 2.5 years into my third business, after failing the first two, I hired a business coach, and that coach knew my dad. He actually worked with him at Siemens. My dad was an executive at a big billionaire company. And he goes, Stu, this guy, he goes, you do realize your dad is one of the best business minds I've ever met in the history of my life. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah. And he goes, the fact that you have access to him and you don't use that is causing your success to suffer and your team to suffer and your customers to suffer. And you got to get over that. And that was like a switch where I realized that chip was stopping me from becoming who I was. And I think what happens in life, for me anyways, was that in the early days of business, we don't know why we're doing it and we're trying to learn. And then eventually it's kind of like a Maslow's hierarchy of entrepreneurship, right? Why we do things in the early days versus why we do them later, right? Yeah. In the early days, it's very much around that chip. But I think as you evolve as an entrepreneur, then it becomes more about impact in the world and less about trying to prove it. Yeah, like I literally have no chip at all today, other than I feel like I'm here for a reason. And if I don't express that potential as much as I can every day, that I'm not honoring the person that put me on here to do that. Right. This guy, Ed, there's guy Ed talks about, he says, I believe at the end of the day, when we meet our creator, they're going to introduce us to the person that they had in mind. And ideally you don't meet that person and they're a complete stranger. Right. you meet that person and they are your twin, right? Ideally, because the creator created you to show up, to create, to express your potential. And if you show up and you sandbag and you don't do that, you don't lean into it, and you don't do the hard things, then you're going to end up someday meeting that person going, shit, I had no idea that that's what I was supposed to do, or that's what I could have done. And it was just a decision, right? And I think that's a good way of thinking about it.
Very cool. Very cool. What's possible is one of my favorite thoughts. Like I just want to swing to the fences and just see what the hell we can do. Like when you really start believing in yourself, you're like, holy shit. No, like everything becomes small, and not in a negative way. You just, it's not so overwhelmingly big anymore. When you just really believe in yourself, you're like, shit, man, I could do anything. I could be a violin player. I just got to bang it out. Like it's this endless possibilities. It's the funnest thought. It's just playtime. Just imagine what could you be doing? Like, and when you don't have a limitation. And so when you look within, and if you can push your limitations away and get over yourself, and man, that just opens up more possibilities. And it's almost like a game that you can't win. You know what I mean? It's just a game you can't win.
Well, so that to me, that is the, I haven't read it yet, but Simon's new book, Infinite Game, right? I like that concept, kind of what you're saying.
Infinite
maybe
game,
the infinite game of like,
forever.
How do you design the game where it doesn't have to finish for you to play it?
There you go.
And it just gets better. It's
cool. Love it. It's great concept. Great framework on that. So now I got a question for you, because again, just knowing where you come from, you're not a guy that just went to school, got your degree, you went into business, and I call them like, no judgment, but maybe a little bit. It's kind of medium people. There's medium. Like where's the spice? You know, you've got a little bit of spice. If you've gone through what you've gone through, guaranteed you got a flavor and you got a spice. You got residue of being that guy no matter what. And I think, though, that it's probably turning into a deep passion for giving back and different things like that, which could be your spice. But here's the thing. Do you have, and you don't have to share it here, but I like to get to know the real heart of Dan, a secret vision that has nothing to do with what you do today in a way that you want to impact the world? Do you have a secret vision?
You know what, Ben? I wish I had something for you, but I mean, I'm pretty public about what I'm trying to do. You know what I mean? I've just been working on myself for so many years that I think that question is usually like, if you work with any person around personal development, that's what they'll ask you. It's like, what do you want to stand for with your time? Like, you're going to die. What impact do you want to leave? And I think what's happened over the years is I've just gotten clearer about it.
Beautiful.
Actually, working with Philip, we talked about Philip McKernan earlier, at Give and Grow is where I really discovered my focus on at-risk youth. Prior to that was, anybody in addiction, adults, et cetera. But it was working with Philip that he gave me permission to just say, you know what, my passion is actually not adults. It's just not. It's the teenagers, right, that are struggling and suffering. And it's not even the ones that have, it's mental illness, it's homelessness, it's kids that haven't been able to discover their passion. And so I think what happens is it continues to refine and get clear. Yeah. But no, I don't have a secret.
It shows some alignment. That's all. It just shows that you've come to, you know what I mean? Like you said, like same thing happens with Philip. He'll break you right apart and go, what are you about? And I think and when you've done that kind of work, you get those kind of answers, which I just asked. Many people
100%. And that's why I feel bad. Yeah, I feel bad when people are like, well, how did you discover your passion? Or it's like, I just did the work. You know what I mean? The story I shared earlier about what I went through as a teenager, I never shared that for 15 years. Never told the world. Never told the world I went to rehab or jail or anything. Zero.
Which is a huge, huge part. That's your flavor, man.
That's who I am. It's what I do with my year. It's the work I do in my charities. It literally was such a big part of my life. And I just knew inside me that I wasn't sharing it. And it took me a decade. Literally, I wanted to, and I just kept it secret and private, and I never told anybody. And then I had an opportunity to get on stage. And there was this thing around like whoever gave the best talk was going to win 25 grand for their charity of their choice. And I just knew I wasn't going to win telling a marketing talk.
You're like, I gotta get real.
Yeah. And I
cool.
I cracked open. It was a little ugly. I mean, it wasn't as refined as the story I told today, but that just set me down on a different path of connecting with people in a way that I just feel is more authentic to me, right? I don't want you to know me and not know me. I just feel like there's too much success theater going on. There's too much posturing, and it's just not my style.
Totally get that, man. I remember being like with the chip. I used to be like, hey, how do I make Dan like me right now? What do I need to do? Like, it was so all like I was living on the streets when I was 13 and all this stuff, and you just lost, right? But yeah, it's amazing how what happens though is you're like, okay, I got this guy to like me, but now you got to maintain that shit. Like, that is the hardest thing to do, is be like, look at this, I'm successful, or I'm doing whatever. Like, and that posturing is extremely exhausting. And it literally keeps you stuck. It's something I'm like really done with it. I'm probably not, to be honest. We all have layers and layers. I'm probably trying to prove myself right now in some weird fucked up way, but that's okay. That's the process. But the thing is, I totally relate to you, man. I think just let people see who you are. And let yourself find your tribe, because when you find people that accept you for who you are, man, that's another energy nitro.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Talking about the energy leak, that's the big one for sure.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, okay. So here's another thing that's coming up in business. And in business, it's weird because, we're talking about backstories and stuff. It's actually popular now. And it's manipulated now. It's like, oh yeah, I was struggling. Here's my story. It's becoming you have to almost discern who's legit telling their story and who's really connected to that story. And that's something that's happened. And I lead into this because emotional intelligence, it's the new thing. Okay. I think I'm all in on it. But what is emotional intelligence? Because I'm noticing everyone's starting to use this word, right? Like, there's always these marketing words, but emotional intelligence, I think, is important. But tell me what emotional intelligence is to you, and why is it important?
Yeah, I mean, so I call it, EQ. So what's fascinating for me is I feel so lucky to have gone through rehab at 17. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Is the place I went to, 11 months of therapy, really gave me a masterclass in emotional intelligence and understanding what made me tick, what were the scenarios, and then other people. So for example, every cleanup at this place, you had to partner with somebody and share your life story, right? And so, like, you think about it, like 11 months, 3 cleanups a day.
I get it.
A whole lot of stories. Like, most adults will never have that level of conversation with one person their whole life, and I had dozens.
Yeah.
And being able to just like get that masterclass is what allows me, I think, in business to be able to truly understand not only my self-awareness of like the words that I choose and the way I show up, but also understand how to read other people. That when they say this, they actually don't mean that. They have an issue here, but they can't say it, so they say it this way. And it's like, I don't even know how to explain it, but that's just like what I feel like I've gotten really good at. And it's why I love doing my interview show, my Escape Velocity show. Because I feel like I can ask questions that are definitely not the norm and dig into things that I'm seeing. And it's why
they're putting out. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, it's everything in business, like at scale, when you get to, 50 million, 100 million in revenue, it's about the people and working through people and like how you show up as a leader. Right. And that is, so I'd say 90% of it's EQ, it's emotional intelligence, and then 10% strategy. Right. Because the strategy, once it's figured out, it's the people that are going to have to implement.
Totally. Man, I always think about someone building a race car and they got the best wheels, the best engine. They've got every single thing, every hack in there to get the more speed, aerodynamics, but they don't ever look at the driver. Like if you're if you're an amazing driver, you literally don't have to have the best business in the world to make that shit work. That's why it's almost backwards.
I race cars. Okay.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. A little bit of a flip. I got a McLaren.
Yeah. Come on. Oh yeah. I saw that's pretty fancy, Dan.
Yeah. And I know that I suck as a driver compared to my other friends that drive cars that cost a fraction of the cost because they know how to drive. They know how to hit the corners, the apex, the momentum,
and that's the EQ. That's EQ. That's EQ.
Yeah. They can have a car that is definitely shittier on all facets and still beat me a lot of times.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's cool. I didn't know you're in the racing. Are you getting better at your driver's EQ? Are you working at that?
Of course.
I think you'd probably want to. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
How fun is that, man? Like, what, you love racing or what?
100%. Yeah. I'm going to F1. I've done rally car racing. I've done everything. Yeah.
You know what? I saw that you took some group to a rally car. Was that Philip on that thing? Was that on
Philip?
I don't know.
I've gone a bunch of times. He was on one of them for sure, maybe two of them. But yeah, Philip came. There's a place called Dirtfish outside of Seattle.
Yep.
But I'm just a bit of an adrenaline junkie. So if it's got an engine, I enjoy that. Cool. I do. It's snow biking. I don't know if you've ever seen a snow bike.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. That's cool.
So
it's a dirt biking on the mountain.
Yeah, it's essentially a dirt bike with a conversion kit with a snowmobile track on the back.
That's crazy. I'm going to Vegas. I'm taking my mastermind down to Vegas in a couple of weeks, about 15, 20 business owners. And so we've got a lot of stuff planned, but I've always wanted to be on a trophy truck and drive a trophy truck. And I think I'll run the Baja someday, but I'm just going to go and have you done it?
Awesome. Yeah, I would say
it's on my list. I want to do it.
Out of everything I've done, Dirtfish is probably the most fun because it's a little bit more technical and feel. Racing exotics, in Vegas, they've got to get up in LA. So go tracking an exotic, I think is a lot of fun. And then the trophy trucks are there as well. But I would say even better than all of that is the timber sleds, like the backcountry motorbike, flowing in the powder, dropping cliffs, going up the mountain. I mean,
crazy.
It's the most fun you can have.
I love it. I love that. We're getting close to our time a bit. We'll start kind of wrapping it up, but I'd like to get a little bit of advice from you. I know you probably give a lot of advice, and you got a big heart that way. So if you were to see, what's that?
Just a bit.
Just a bit.
That's all that's all I do is talk every day. That's I just talk.
You've built a business around who you are, which is admirable, right? Like some people build a business around not who they are and they hate it every day. So if you like talking, we're in the game. So giving advice to, I know it's a vague question, but I want to take it wherever you want to go. You meet a new entrepreneur, okay? I got a second part of this question after. New entrepreneur, give them advice. You don't know much about him. You don't have time to dig into a session with him or her. If you were to give advice, top-end advice for new entrepreneurs, what would it be?
Get around people that are 2 years ahead of you in the thing you're doing. Period. Full stop. Nothing else.
Done. That's the hack.
It's that simple. You literally, it will pull you forward into success. So you could literally you don't even have to talk. You just organize a dinner or organize an event and bring people together and just be around them and listen with your ears open. And that osmosis will pull you forward in business and success. Because it's like trying to be fit and then eating wings at a dinner table with a bunch of athletes. They're going to look at you funny, right?
It's so true, isn't it?
It's positive peer pressure. Just by being around those people, you'll get positive peer pressure in the right direction.
Love it. Okay, now next question. You run into an absolute seasoned entrepreneur. What advice do you give to the guy that's a seasoned entrepreneur? It's harder without context. I get it.
If somebody bought your business tomorrow, what's the first thing they would change?
Ooh, that is good. I got to think of that one. You just gave me a nugget.
There's a whole series of questions that I think Philip, we talk about him a lot. He should pay you for sponsoring this podcast. But,
no doubt.
He's really great at the personal questions. What I've tried to master is the business questions, right?
I'm writing this down. What would you change if you sold tomorrow? What would
somebody buy your business tomorrow that they knew your industry? What would be the first thing they would change? Because whatever the answer to that is, yeah, there's something you're not doing that is probably an emotional reason, that not a strategic, logical decision.
Yeah, 100%.
That'll at least bring it to the surface and then at least provide clarity around it.
Okay, here's an easier question. If you were to create a scratch and sniff sticker, what would the picture be and what would it smell like?
It would smell like peanut butter for sure.
What? Just like that. You didn't even hesitate. Peanut butter.
I like peanut butter.
That was
picture. I would probably do I don't know why, but like a bear,
just to mess with someone. Like, oh, it's a bear. Let me sniff this bear. And he smells like peanut butter. It should be honey. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool, man. Cool. You know what? I always like to learn, and I'm a big believer in putting myself on the altar. I like being examined and challenged. I've learned that is an absolute hack to seeing things in your life that you don't know, and opening yourself up to conversation. So I always ask my guest to throw a question at me, any question you want. It could be dumb, and you don't even have to give me a question, but I always want to put myself there and say, okay, take a shot. If you want have a question toward me, I'd love to answer it. And I never prep anyone on this, by the way.
What's the one thing you wish you would have done differently 5 years ago that's had the biggest impact on your life today?
I did a lot of stuff.
Financially, what's driven the most financial reward that you could have done 5 years ago that maybe you just discovered in the last 2 years?
Staying away from what I really, really love.
But lean into the thing that you want to create.
I'm still not there, but I have.
That question for everybody watching or listening or wherever you're doing. That was for you guys.
Yeah.
So unpack that, Ben. What does that mean?
Well, you do things that you logically think is the best way that'll maybe bring you the best money or the whatever. And it really, the question is, does it slow me down from doing whatever I want?
I want a real example from your personal life. If you're going to ask me the opportunity, I want to know the real thing. So what is it?
I think I still do it today, Dan, is I position myself.
That's what I want to know.
I position myself as an expert in business when the truth is I just want to work with people and help them believe in themselves. And there's the conflict I wrestle with all the time. And so I feel like I'm closer than I've ever been, like my from within, business from within. I changed my podcast from business from within to from within. The more I can be aligned, the more it just feels so fun and it's so easy. And to be honest with you, I feel like the money is different kind of money. It doesn't necessarily mean it's explosive and a lot more money, but it's a different kind of money coming my way. Yeah. And it's so I really believe that if I was to focus directly on what I wanted to do, like I run one of the largest, most successful real estate companies in Western Canada. I've got a team of 6 that works for me. I did that 100% just out of logic. And so there's a little bit less life in that. So there's a lot more life in what I want to do. And that's where I talk about energy. That's where I talk about that. So I think that's been, if I go back 5 years, I'd be moving that direction way sooner and way faster. And I feel like I'm now pointed in the right direction, but I still got a ways to go.
You got to transition. I mean, this is the thing, Ben, and everybody listening is there's an assumption that, we have to take sacrifice or like the revenue's going to drop, et cetera. And what I've discovered, and you've alluded to, is when we lean into that, all that stuff happens better, faster, bigger. Yeah. And that's the faith part in business that people need that they don't have. And that's the difference between an Elon Musk and a Zuckerberg versus other people, is they have the ability to have faith. And nobody like when Elon started Tesla, he said, I felt I had a 30% chance of being successful, but it had to be done. Right. Most people would not start a business feeling like legit feeling. I only think there's a 1 out of 3 chance that I'm actually going to make any money. So I'm going to dedicate the next 5 years of my life to this thing. Right. Because it matters that much. So I just think that that's a really great perspective. I appreciate the honesty.
Thanks for the question. It's I don't like the bullshit, and I think that puts me. I'm a super uncomfortable question for me because it's definitely close to home, and it's like I still feel like if you really examine me, you're like, why are you doing that? Like I just hear that happening, right? But it's like it's just so cool to be able to have that moment where you're like just to check in and be like, yeah, you know what am I doing in my life that's not 100% aligned? But then there's this process that has to happen though. There's a process of getting through the transition. Like you can't just go done. I guess maybe you could, but
I don't think you should do just done. I don't recommend. I coach a lot of clients that have agencies and they have a software and they want to go more software. So I deal with this every day.
Okay.
The only difference is there's a timeline, a strategy, and a decision that's made.
Yeah.
So you don't have the timeline, decision, and strategy yet, because if you did, it wouldn't be an issue because you already know it's solved. So, totally. So if you're asking and you haven't, but I'm going to share that, sit down and do that work. And then you'll at least know what the timeline looks like. Does that make sense?
Love it. It's, I can feel your experience. I can feel that you've got your own story behind it. I feel like it's very, I feel people. And I think that's real rich what you just gave. So Dan, thanks so much for being on the show. I hear you're a legend. I'm learning that out myself. I think that we didn't really get into the real event coming up. Why don't you just drop it?
I don't care.
It's probably going to be.
I don't care about any of that, and I just want to give value. But yeah, cool. If people want to follow along, Dan Martell, 2 L's to Martell.com. Subscribe to my newsletter. If you want to see the things I know, YouTube, I literally put it all out there for free. If you want to follow along on the personal side, stories on Instagram is probably where I share the most personal stuff. And then if you want to see the funnier side of me, I would say go check out TikTok because I'm having a lot of fun.
It is fun, isn't it? Don't see mine.
It's different, man.
It's almost like a place you can just be in total goof. Like it's like, you notice that? You just, whatever. Like it's just a different audience. Like as if you're watching 15-year-old kids or you make them laugh. And totally. Yeah. I'm messing around with it too. I got 5 kids. So I knew about TikTok. Do you want to know something crazy? Yeah. My son was on TikTok 4 years ago.
Well, so what's funny is when I looked at my account, it said I created in 2010. So I don't understand.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That was about the same as my son. Something like it was old. It's been around.
It must have been a different platform, and they've just kept iterating. Because I think it was Musically before.
No, I don't know, man. I talked to my son. I'm like, I Googled, and I saw him, and he's a little kid, and it threw my head off. He's a little kid talking on TikTok, and I'm like, how the hell is he on TikTok? Why is he this age? It was old. Like he said it was maybe 5 years ago.
I don't think it was TikTok, man. I think it was Musically. And I think it was something before that.
I'll ask him. I'm going to
Google because I feel like somebody's done a breakdown blog post around this topic.
Yeah, Google can tell us. Who cares? So, Dan, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. Okay. I like getting to know you. You're a good dude, and I wish you all the best in what you're doing. And until next time, man.
All right, appreciate it, Ben. Talk soon.
Cheers. Sure. See you, buddy.